What if the loose change sitting in your pocket right now holds a secret that most people overlook? A simple penny from 1967 that could be far more interesting than its 1 cent value suggests. Today, we're taking a closer look at the 1967 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that often gets ignored, yet carries a fascinating story tied to a unique moment in American history. At first glance, it looks like any ordinary penny. But once you understand why it exists the way it does, you begin to see it differently. The 1967 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. By 1967, the design had already become one of the most recognizable coins in the United States. On the front, you'll see the familiar profile of Lincoln, along with the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1967. On the back, the classic wheat ears had already been replaced in 1959 with the Lincoln Memorial design, showing the monument in Washington, D.C. But here's where things get interesting. If you look at a 1967 penny, you'll notice something missing. There is no mint mark. Normally, U.S. coins carry a small letter indicating where they were made, such as D for Denver or S for San Francisco. But from 1965 to 1967, the United States Mint made a very unusual decision. They removed all mint marks from circulating coins. That means every penny from 1967, no matter where it was produced, looks exactly the same. Why would the mint do this? The answer lies in a nationwide coin shortage during the mid-1960s. At that time, rising silver prices and increased demand for coins caused people to hoard them. Collectors were also pulling newly minted coins out of circulation, especially those with specific mint marks. The government believed that removing mint marks would discourage collecting and keep coins moving through everyday transactions. So in 1967, all Lincoln pennies were struck without a mint mark, even though they were produced in multiple facilities. It was a temporary solution to a growing problem, and by 1968, mint marks were restored. Now let's talk about what this coin is actually made of. The 1967 Lincoln penny is composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This gives it that classic reddish-brown appearance that many people associate with older pennies. It weighs about 3.11 grams and has a smooth edge. Unlike modern pennies, which contain mostly zinc, these older copper coins are often favored by collectors for their durability and historical feel. At first glance, millions of these coins were made, over 3 billion in total. That might make you think they're not rare at all. And in most cases, that's true. A typical 1967 penny in circulated condition is only worth a few cents. But as with many coins, the real story lies in the details. Condition plays a huge role in value. Coins that have never been used in circulation, known as uncirculated coins, can be worth significantly more. A bright, well-preserved 1967 penny with sharp details and original luster can sell for several dollars, sometimes even higher depending on its grade. But the real excitement comes from error coins. During the minting process, small mistakes can happen. These errors are what collectors look for, and they can turn an ordinary coin into something truly valuable. With 1967 pennies, some of the most sought-after errors include double die varieties, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated, and off-center strikes, where the coin design is not properly aligned. There are also cases of coins struck on the wrong type of metal, although these are extremely rare. When such an error is discovered and verified, its value can jump dramatically. In fact, some high-grade 1967 Lincoln pennies and error varieties have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. For example, a well-preserved coin graded at a high mint state level can reach impressive prices among collectors who are looking for the best possible example. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1967 penny? Start by checking the condition. Look at the coin under good lighting. If the surface is shiny, with very few scratches or signs of wear, it may be uncirculated. Pay close attention to Lincoln's face and the fine details of the memorial on the back. The sharper and clearer the details, the better. Next, look for unusual features. Use a magnifying glass to inspect the lettering and numbers. If you notice doubling, misalignment, or anything that looks different from a normal coin, it could be an error. Also check the edges and the overall shape. Anything that seems off could be worth investigating further. Another important step is authentication. If you believe you've found a rare or valuable coin, it's a good idea to have it evaluated by a professional coin grading service. They can confirm its authenticity, assign it a grade, and help determine its market value. Now let's talk about something surprising. Even though the 1967 penny has no mint mark, some people mistakenly believe that this makes it rare by default. In reality, the absence of a mint mark is completely normal for that year. So if someone tries to sell you a 1967 penny as rare because it has no mint mark, that's a red flag. The true value comes from condition and possible errors, not the missing mint mark itself. Here's another interesting fact. Because these pennies were made during a time when mint marks were removed, they represent a unique 3-year period in U.S. coin history that makes them historically significant, even if they're not always financially valuable. Collectors often include them in sets to complete the timeline of the Lincoln Cent series. There's also a certain nostalgia attached to these coins. Many people remember using them in everyday life, buying candy, or receiving them as change. Holding a 1967 penny today is like holding a small piece of that past. Collectors love this coin for a few key reasons. First, it tells a story about a time when the U.S. Mint had to adapt to unusual circumstances. Second, it offers the possibility of discovering hidden value through errors or high-grade examples. And third, it's accessible. Unlike some rare coins that cost thousands of dollars, the 1967 penny is something almost anyone can find and start learning from. It's also a great entry point for new collectors. You don't need a large budget or advanced knowledge to begin. Just a simple coin, a bit of curiosity, and a willingness to look closely. And that's really what makes coin collecting so fascinating. It's not just about money. It's about history, discovery, and the thrill of finding something unexpected in the most ordinary places. So the next time you come across a 1967 Lincoln penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look. Examine the details. Think about the story behind it. Because even though it may only be worth 1 cent, it carries a piece of history that can't be measured so easily. And who knows, the next coin you check might not be so ordinary after all. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now isn't just spare change, but a hidden piece of history that could be worth far more than 1 cent? Today, we're diving into a coin that most people overlook, yet collectors quietly search for: the 1969D Mint Mark Lincoln Penny. At first glance, the 1969D Lincoln Penny looks completely ordinary. It's small, copper-colored, and features the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front. You've probably seen dozens, maybe hundreds, of coins just like it. But behind that simple design lies a story of American history, minting precision, and the subtle details that separate a common coin from a collectible one. The Lincoln Penny series began back in 1909, created to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure, replacing earlier designs that used symbolic images. By 1969, the Lincoln penny had already been in circulation for 60 years, becoming one of the most recognized coins in the United States. The year 1969 itself was a remarkable time in American history. It was the year humans first walked on the moon, a period of rapid change, innovation, and cultural transformation. Amid all of that, millions of pennies were quietly being produced to keep the economy moving. Among them were coins minted in Denver, identified by a small D mint mark located just below the date on the front of the coin. The 1969 D penny was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the major U.S. coin-producing facilities. That year, over 2.8 billion pennies were minted in Denver alone. With such a high number, it might seem impossible for this coin to be rare or valuable. And for most examples, that's true. But as any experienced collector will tell you, value doesn't always come from how many were made. It often comes down to condition, details, and sometimes unexpected minting quirks. Let's take a closer look at what makes this coin special. The 1969 D Lincoln penny is made primarily of copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. This gives it that rich, warm tone that many collectors love. Later pennies, especially after 1982, shifted to a different composition, making these earlier copper coins feel heavier and more substantial. On the front or obverse, you'll see the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Above his head is the word Liberty, and to the right is the date, 1969, with the small D mint mark just beneath it. On the back, or reverse, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to mark Lincoln's 150th birthday. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny depiction of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, an impressive detail for such a small coin. Now here's where things get interesting. While the 1969 D penny is not known for the famous double die errors that made the Philadelphia 1969 penny extremely valuable, it can still hold significant value under the right conditions. Coins that were preserved carefully, with sharp details and no wear, are considered uncirculated or mint state. These are the coins collectors are always hunting for. In lower grades, a 1969 D penny is worth only a few cents, sometimes just its copper value. But in higher grades, the story changes. A well-preserved example graded MS-65 or higher can sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on its color and quality. Coins with a bright, original red color, often referred to as red by collectors, are especially desirable. These are coins that have maintained their original shine without darkening over time. There have been auction sales where top-grade 1969 D pennies reached impressive prices. While not in the thousands like some rare error coins, pristine examples have sold for tens or even over $100. That may not sound life-changing, but considering it started as a 1-cent coin, it's a remarkable increase in value. So how can you tell if your 1969 D penny is worth keeping? First, check the mint mark. Make sure there is a small D under the date. Next, examine the coin's condition. Look at Lincoln's hair, the lettering, and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Are the details sharp, or are they worn down? The sharper the details, the higher the potential value. Color is another key factor. A bright, reddish coin that looks almost new is far more valuable than one that appears brown or dull. Also, check for any unusual features like off-center strikes, die cracks, or other minting errors. While rare, these can significantly increase a coin's value. Be cautious, though. The coin world has its share of altered or fake pieces. Some individuals attempt to modify coins to make them appear more valuable. For example, adding a fake mint mark or altering the date. A genuine 1969 D penny should have a clean, well-defined mint mark that matches the style used by the Denver Mint during that period. If something looks off, it's always best to have the coin evaluated by a professional grading service. Here's a fun detail that many people don't realize. Because of the sheer number of pennies produced in the late 1960s, many of them were stored in rolls and collections right from the start. This means that even today, decades later, it's still possible to find high-quality 1969 D pennies in old coin rolls, jars, or inherited collections. That sense of possibility is part of what makes coin collecting so exciting. Another interesting fact is that copper pennies like the 1969 D have intrinsic metal value. Even if the coin isn't rare, the copper content alone can be worth more than 1 cent, depending on market conditions. This adds an extra layer of appeal for collectors who appreciate both history and material value. Collectors love the 1969 D Lincoln penny not because it's the rarest coin ever made, but because it represents a moment in time. It's a piece of everyday history that connects us to the late 1960s, a period filled with change, ambition, and progress. Holding one of these coins is like holding a small fragment of that era. There's also a certain satisfaction in finding value where others see none. To most people, a penny is just a penny. But to a collector, it's a puzzle waiting to be solved. Is it in great condition? Does it have unique features? Could it be part of a complete set? These questions turn a simple coin into something much more meaningful. And perhaps that's the real story behind the 1969 D Lincoln penny. It reminds us that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in the details, waiting for someone curious enough to look a little closer. So the next time you come across an old penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a moment to examine it. Look at the date, the mint mark, the color, and the condition. Because you never know. That small, ordinary coin could carry a story, a history, and maybe even a value that's been overlooked for decades. And as you continue exploring the world of coins, you might start to see them differently. Not just as money, but as pieces of history that have traveled through countless hands, witnessed countless moments, and somehow ended up with you. The 1969 D Lincoln penny may not always make headlines, but for those who understand it, it holds a quiet kind of importance. And who knows? The next great find might already be sitting in your collection, just waiting to be discovered. Imagine finding a single penny in your pocket that most people would ignore, and then discovering it could be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's gold, not because it's ancient, but because of tiny details almost no one notices. Today, we're diving into the story of the 1970 D Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance, yet hides secrets that continue to surprise collectors across the country. The 1970 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin minted in Denver, which is what the small D mint mark under the date represents. At the time, pennies were still a normal part of daily life. People used them for small purchases, dropped them in jars, or simply ignored them. But like many coins in American history, what seems common today can become rare tomorrow, depending on how it was made and what went wrong during production. To understand why this coin matters, we need to step back into the late 1960s and early 1970s. The United States Mint was under pressure. Coin shortages had been a real problem earlier in the decade, and demand for small change was still high. The mint increased production, and millions upon millions of pennies were struck every year. In 1970, the Denver Mint produced over 2.8 billion Lincoln pennies. That sounds like a huge number, and it is. On the surface, it would seem impossible for any coin from such a massive mintage to be rare or valuable. But history has a way of hiding exceptions inside big numbers. The Lincoln penny design itself had already been around for decades. First introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. By 1970, the obverse still showed Lincoln's profile, calm and steady, with the words, "In God we trust," above, "Liberty" to the side, and the year below. On the reverse, you would find the familiar wheat ears design had already been replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial. That meant the 1970 D penny features the Lincoln Memorial on the back, a symbol of national pride and remembrance. In terms of composition, this coin was made primarily of copper, about 95%, with the remaining 5% being zinc. It had a solid, slightly reddish-brown appearance when new, though over time many of these coins darkened due to oxidation and circulation. In everyday use, it was just another penny. But hidden within this sea of copper coins were a few that turned out very different from the rest. One of the most talked about aspects of the 1970 D penny is the possibility of errors and varieties. In the world of coin collecting, errors are not mistakes to be discarded. They are treasures. One of the key varieties collectors look for is related to the date and the way it was struck. While the famous small date variety is more commonly associated with the San Francisco Mint in 1970, Denver coins can still have subtle differences that attract attention. Collectors often examine the lettering, the spacing of the numbers in the date, and the sharpness of the design. Some 1970 D pennies show signs of what are known as die errors. These happen when the metal dies used to stamp the coins develop cracks, chips, or wear. When that happens, the coins they produce can carry those imperfections. You might see raised lines, unusual textures, or small distortions in the design. To the average person, these might look like damage. To a collector, they can be the difference between a 1-cent coin and something much more valuable. Another interesting feature comes from the quality of the strike. Because of the high demand, not every coin was struck perfectly. Some coins came out with weak details, while others were struck with exceptional sharpness. High-quality examples, especially those that were never circulated and remain in near-perfect condition, are much harder to find today. These are the coins collectors compete for. Now you might be wondering, with billions made, how can any 1970 D penny be worth more than face value? The answer lies in condition, rarity within varieties, and collector demand. A typical worn 1970 D penny is still worth just 1 cent. But if you find one in uncirculated condition, with strong luster and no visible wear, its value can rise significantly. In some cases, collectors have paid anywhere from a few dollars to over $100 for high-grade examples. Coins that have been professionally graded and certified in top condition, often labeled as mint state 65 or higher, can reach even higher prices. While it's not common for a standard 1970 D penny to sell for thousands, Certain exceptional pieces with unique characteristics or near-perfect preservation can surprise the market. There have been auction listings where pristine 1970 pennies sold for impressive amounts compared to their face value. The key factor is always the same: condition and uniqueness. A coin that looks like it just left the mint, even after more than 50 years, carries a kind of time capsule appeal. It tells a story of being preserved while countless others were lost to everyday use. But with value comes risk, and that means the possibility of counterfeits or altered coins. While the 1970 penny is not one of the most heavily faked coins in history, it's still important to know how to identify a genuine example. First, look closely at the mint mark. The D should appear clear and properly aligned beneath the date. If it looks unusually shaped, uneven, or out of place, it could be a sign of tampering. Next, examine the overall detail. Genuine coins from the U.S. Mint have consistent design features. The portrait of Lincoln should look natural, not distorted. The lettering should be clean and readable. If something feels off, it's worth comparing it to a verified example or consulting a professional coin dealer. Weight and composition can also provide clues. A real 1970 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If a coin feels too light or too heavy, it might not be authentic. While most people don't carry precision scales, even a simple comparison with another penny from the same era can help. Another tip is to avoid cleaning the coin. Many people think cleaning improves value, but in reality, it can do the opposite. Collectors prefer coins in their natural state. Cleaning can remove original surfaces and reduce the coin's appeal and worth. There are also some fun and surprising details about this coin that many people don't know. For example, 1970 was one of the last years before major changes came to coin production in the decades that followed. It represents a time when pennies were still made with a high copper content, something that would later change in 1982 when the composition shifted to mostly zinc with a thin copper coating. Another interesting point is that many of these pennies are still out there, hiding in jars, drawers, and collections that haven't been checked in years. Because they were so common, people rarely thought to save them. That means there is always a small chance that a high-quality or unusual example is waiting to be discovered. Collectors today are drawn to the 1970 penny not because it is the rarest coin ever made, but because it represents the idea that value can be hidden in plain sight. It's a reminder that even the smallest details matter. A tiny difference in strike, a subtle variation in design, or a coin that escaped circulation can turn something ordinary into something special. For many collectors, the excitement comes from the hunt, searching through rolls of pennies, examining each coin carefully, and hoping to find that one piece that stands out. The 1970 penny fits perfectly into that experience. It's accessible, familiar, and yet full of possibility. And perhaps that's the most fascinating part of all. This coin was never meant to be rare. It was created to be used, spent, and forgotten. But over time, as millions disappeared and only a fraction remained in top condition, its story changed. What was once common became collectible. What was once ignored became noticed. So the next time you come across a 1970 Lincoln penny, take a closer look. Check the details, examine the condition, and think about the journey that coin has taken over the past 5 decades. You might just be holding a small piece of history, one that proves value isn't always obvious at first glance. And who knows, the next penny you almost overlook could be the one that changes the way you see coins forever. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now, the one you barely notice, could actually be worth far more than 1 cent? Not because it's gold, not because it's ancient, but because of a small detail most people never even think to check. Today, we're uncovering the story of the 1973 Lincoln penny, a coin that millions have handled, but very few truly understand. The 1973 Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced in the United States in the year 1973, with the small letter D stamped beneath the date. That D stands for the Denver Mint, one of the major coin-producing facilities in the country. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. It has the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, and on the back, the Lincoln Memorial design that was used for decades. But hidden within this common appearance is a story that connects history, craftsmanship, and the surprising world of coin collecting. To understand this coin, we have to go back to the early 1970s. The United States was going through a time of change. Inflation was rising, the economy was shifting, and everyday items were becoming more expensive. Yet the penny remained in circulation, still playing its role in daily transactions. In 1973, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies to keep up with demand. The Denver Mint alone struck over 3.5 billion of these coins, making the 1973 penny one of the most widely produced coins of its time. Because of this massive production, most people assume the coin is worthless beyond its face value. And in many cases, they would be right. But coin collecting has never been about the average example. It's about the exceptions, the rare variations, the mistakes, and the condition of the coin itself. And this is where the 1973 penny begins to reveal its hidden potential. Let's talk about its physical features. The 1973 Lincoln penny is made primarily of copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc. It has a warm, reddish-brown color when it's in its original state, often called red by collectors. Over time, exposure to air and handling can turn it into a darker brown tone. The coin weighs about 3.11 grams and has a diameter of 19 millimeters, which is standard for pennies of that era. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln facing to the right, a design that has been used since 1909. Above his head are the words "In God We Trust," with "Liberty" to the left and the year 1973 to the right. Just below the date is the small D mint mark, indicating it was produced in Denver. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly, with the words "United States of America" and 1 cent surrounding it. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial. Now, here's where things get interesting. Even though billions were made, not all 1973 pennies are the same. Some were struck with greater precision, sharper details, and better surfaces. Others may have small imperfections, known as mint errors, that can actually increase their value significantly. One type of error collectors look for is the double die. This happens when the design is accidentally imprinted twice during the minting process, creating a slightly doubled appearance in the letters or numbers. While major double die errors are rare for the 1973 penny, minor variations do exist and can attract attention from collectors. Another possibility is off-center strikes. These occur when the coin is not perfectly aligned during minting, causing part of the design to be missing. Depending on how off-center the coin is, it can become much more valuable than a normal penny. There are also clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is missing due to a mistake in cutting the metal blank. These unusual shapes often stand out immediately and can be worth far more than face value. But perhaps the biggest factor that determines value is condition. In coin collecting, condition is everything. A worn, scratched, or heavily circulated 1973 penny may only be worth 1 or 2 cents. But a coin that has been preserved in near-perfect condition, with its original red color and sharp details, can be worth significantly more. Coins are graded on a scale, with higher grades indicating better condition. A 1973 penny in average circulated condition might not attract much interest. But in uncirculated condition, especially those graded at the highest levels, the value can rise dramatically. Some top-grade examples have sold for hundreds, and in rare cases even over $1,000 when the coin is nearly flawless. There have been auction sales where pristine 1973 pennies, graded at the highest levels like MS67 or above, have reached impressive prices. These coins are extremely rare because very few have survived decades without any signs of wear or damage. It's not just about age, it's about preservation. A coin that was set aside immediately after minting, never used, never touched, is far more valuable than one that passed through thousands of hands. So how can you tell if you might have a valuable 1973 penny? First, check the date and the mint mark. Make sure the D is clearly visible beneath the year. Next, examine the coin's surface. Does it still have a bright, reddish shine, or has it turned dull and brown? Look closely at the details. Are Lincoln's features sharp and well-defined, or are they worn down? You'll also want to inspect the coin for any unusual characteristics. Look for doubling in the letters, uneven edges, or parts of the design that seem missing or shifted. These could be signs of mint errors. Using a magnifying glass can help reveal details that are easy to miss with the naked eye. Another important step is authentication. While counterfeit pennies are not extremely common, there are altered coins in the market. Some individuals may try to modify a coin to make it appear more valuable. For example, adding or altering a mint mark. If you believe you have a rare or high-value coin, it's always a good idea to have it evaluated by a professional grading service. They can confirm its authenticity and assign it an official grade, which can significantly impact its market value. Here's something many people don't realize. Even though the 1973 penny is not considered rare in general, it plays an important role in collections. Coin collectors often seek complete sets, and that means having one coin from every year and every mint. The Denver Mint version is a key part of that set, and collectors are always looking for the best possible example they can find. There are also collectors who focus specifically on high-grade coins. They are willing to pay a premium for a coin that is just one grade higher than another. The difference between MS66 and MS67 might seem small, but in the world of coin collecting, it can mean a huge jump in value. And then there's the emotional side of collecting. For many people, coins like the 1973 penny are not just about money. They are about history, nostalgia, and the thrill of discovery. The idea that something so ordinary could hold hidden value is what keeps collectors searching through rolls of coins, old jars, and forgotten collections. Here's a fun detail. If you look very closely at the Lincoln Memorial on the back of the coin, you can actually see a tiny version of Lincoln's statue inside. It's one of the few coins where the same person appears on both sides. It's a small detail, but once you notice it, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. Another surprising fact is that the value of copper itself has increased over time. While it's illegal to melt pennies for their metal content, the intrinsic value of older copper pennies has made them more interesting to collectors and investors alike. The 1973 penny falls into that category, being made before the composition changed in 1982. Today, the 1973 Lincoln penny continues to capture attention not because it is rare in quantity, but because of the possibilities it holds. A simple coin can become valuable if it has the right combination of condition, error, and authenticity. And that's what makes it so exciting. Every time you come across one, there's a chance, however small, that you might be holding something special. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date, the mint mark, the color, and the details. Because hidden among billions of ordinary coins, there are always a few extraordinary ones waiting to be discovered. And who knows? The next valuable coin might already be in your hands, just waiting for you to notice it. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now isn't just spare change, but a small piece of American history that could be worth far more than 1 cent? Today, we're uncovering the story of a coin that most people have seen, but very few truly understand. The 1979 Mint Mark Lincoln Penny. At first glance, the 1979 Lincoln Penny looks ordinary. It's small, copper-colored, and easy to overlook. Millions of people have handled one without giving it a second thought. But behind that simple appearance is a story tied to American history, economic shifts, and a collector market that continues to grow stronger every year. This coin was minted in 1979 at the Denver Mint, which is represented by the small D mint mark you'll find on the front of the coin. The Lincoln penny itself has been part of American currency since 1909, created to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. By 1979, the design had already become one of the most recognizable coins in the United States. The late 1970s were an interesting time in America. Inflation was rising, production costs were increasing, and even something as small as a penny was becoming more expensive to produce. Despite this, the U.S. Mint continued to strike pennies in massive numbers to keep up with demand. In fact, billions of 1979 pennies were produced, and a large portion of them came from the Denver Mint. So if there are so many of these coins, why are collectors still interested in them? The answer lies in the details. The 1979 Lincoln penny is made primarily of copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This was before the major change in 1982, when pennies switched to a mostly zinc composition due to rising copper costs. That means every 1979 penny carries a higher copper content than modern pennies, giving it both historical and material value. On the front of the coin, you'll see the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Above his head is the word Liberty, and to the right is the year 1979. Just below the date, you'll find the small D mint mark, indicating it was struck in Denver. Flip the coin over, and you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to celebrate Lincoln's 150th birthday. If you look closely, you can even spot a tiny representation of the Lincoln statue inside the memorial, a detail that many people miss. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 1979 D pennies are only worth a few cents, certain versions can be worth significantly more. The key factors that drive value are condition, rarity, and errors. Condition plays a huge role. Coins that have never been circulated, known as mint state coins, can be worth much more than those that have been used in everyday transactions. A 1979 D penny in average condition might be worth just 1 or 2 cents. But in high-grade mint state condition, especially graded MS65 or higher, the value can rise to several dollars, sometimes even more depending on demand. But the real excitement comes from error coins. During the minting process, mistakes can happen. These errors are rare, and when they occur, they create unique coins that collectors actively search for. Some 1979 D pennies have been found with double dies, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated. Others may have off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly aligned. There are even cases of die cracks or unusual markings that make a coin stand out. These errors can turn an ordinary penny into something much more valuable. Some collectors have paid anywhere from $50 to several $100s for rare error versions of the 1979 D penny, depending on the severity and uniqueness of the mistake. There are also examples of high-grade coins that have performed well at auction. While the 1979 D penny is not considered one of the rarest coins in American history, top-quality specimens have still sold for impressive prices. Coins graded at the highest levels with perfect surfaces and strong details can reach values that surprise people who thought pennies were practically worthless. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1979 D penny? Start by checking the date and mint mark. Look for the 1979 and the small d below it. Next, examine the coin's condition. Is it shiny and well-preserved, or worn and scratched? The better the condition, the higher the potential value. Then, take a closer look for errors. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Look for doubling in the letters or numbers, unusual shapes, or anything that seems out of place. Even small differences can make a big impact in the world of coin collecting. It's also important to be aware of counterfeits. Although they are less common with coins like this, most fake coins try to imitate rare and highly valuable pieces. Still, if you believe you've found something special, it's always a good idea to have it evaluated by a professional grading service. They can confirm authenticity and assign a grade, which helps determine its true market value. Here's a fun detail that many people don't realize. Because of the high copper content in pre-1982 pennies, some collectors actually save them in bulk. Over time, the metal itself has intrinsic value. In fact, if you were to melt down large quantities of these pennies, although it's not legal to do so for profit, you'd find that the copper content alone can be worth more than 1 cent per coin. Another interesting fact is how common these coins once were. In 1979, pennies were used constantly in everyday transactions. People didn't think twice about them. They were dropped into jars, lost between couch cushions, or spent without a second thought. Today, that same casual treatment has made high-quality examples harder to find, increasing their appeal among collectors. Collectors love the 1979 D Lincoln penny not because it's extremely rare, but because it represents a connection to a specific moment in time. It's a coin from an era before major changes in composition, before digital payments, and before small change began to lose its place in everyday life. There's also something deeply satisfying about searching for value in ordinary places. The idea that a simple penny could hold hidden worth captures the imagination. It turns everyday objects into potential treasures. For new collectors, the 1979 D penny is an accessible starting point. It's affordable, easy to find, and full of learning opportunities. It teaches you how to examine coins, understand grading, and recognize errors. And for experienced collectors, it remains a piece worth hunting for in the highest possible condition. The truth is, coins like this remind us that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in the details, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. So the next time you come across a penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a moment, check the date, look for that small D mint mark, Because you never know, you might be holding more than just a coin. You might be holding a story, a piece of history, or even a small but meaningful treasure. And once you start looking, you may never see pocket change the same way again. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now could be worth thousands of dollars? Not because it's gold, not because it's ancient, but because of a tiny detail most people never even notice. Today, we're diving into the story of the 1992 D Lincoln penny, a coin that looks completely ordinary, yet has shocked collectors with its hidden value. The 1992 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark just below the year on the front. At first glance, it's just another copper-colored coin featuring Abraham Lincoln, something millions of Americans have handled without a second thought. But within this everyday coin lies one of the most fascinating and valuable error varieties in modern U.S. coin history. To understand why this coin matters, we need to go back to 1992. This was a time when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies every year. Pennies were still widely used in daily transactions, and the design of the Lincoln cent had already been around for decades. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1992, the coin still featured Lincoln's portrait on the front, designed by Victor David Brenner, and on the back, the Lincoln Memorial, which had been introduced in 1959. Nothing about 1992 seemed unusual. The Mint followed its standard process, producing coins in massive quantities in both Philadelphia and Denver. The Denver Mint coins carried the D Mint mark, and millions of them entered circulation without any special attention. But hidden within this massive production run was a small number of coins that would later become legendary among collectors. The secret lies in the spacing of the letters on the reverse side of the coin. Specifically, the words America in United States of America. On most 1992 pennies, there is a noticeable gap between the letters A and M. This is called the wide AM variety, and it is completely normal for that year. However, a very small number of 1992 pennies were struck using a different reverse design, one that was not supposed to be used that year. In these rare coins, the letters A and M in America are almost touching. This is known as the close AM variety, and it is the key detail that turns an ordinary penny into a highly valuable collector's item. This happened because of a minting mix-up. The reverse design intended for proof coins, which are specially made coins with sharper details, was accidentally used on some regular circulation coins. These proof designs had the close AM spacing, and when they appeared on standard coins, it created a rare and unexpected variety. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. While both Philadelphia and Denver produced pennies in 1992, the 1992 D close AM variety is especially rare. Only a tiny number have ever been confirmed, making it one of the most sought-after modern penny errors in existence. Visually, the differences are subtle but critical. On a genuine 1992 D close AM penny, the A and M in America are so close they nearly touch. Additionally, the FG initials of the designer Frank Gasparo, located near the Lincoln Memorial, appear farther from the building compared to normal coins. These small details are what collectors look for, often using magnification to confirm authenticity. So why does this tiny design difference make such a big impact on value? The answer is simple: rarity and demand. When a coin is both rare and widely collectible, its value can skyrocket. The Lincoln Penny series is one of the most popular in the United States, and collectors are always searching for unusual varieties and errors. Over the years, the 1992 D close AM penny has gained a reputation as a hidden treasure coin. It's the kind of coin that could still be found in circulation in old jars or even in inherited coin collections. That possibility alone fuels excitement among collectors and keeps demand high in terms of real-world value. This coin has delivered some astonishing results. A genuine 1992 D close AM penny in circulated condition can sell for several $1,000s. In higher grades, especially coins that are well-preserved and show minimal wear, the value can climb significantly higher. Some examples have sold for over $10,000 at auction, depending on condition and certification. These are not everyday sales. They represent verified coins that have been authenticated by professional grading services, which is an important step in the process. Because the difference between a common penny and a rare one is so subtle, Authentication is critical to confirm that the coin is genuine. Of course, with high value comes the risk of confusion and even counterfeits. Many people mistakenly believe they have a rare coin simply because they see something unusual. In the case of the 1992 penny, the most common mistake is misidentifying the spacing between the A and M. Lighting, wear, and even damage can make a normal coin look like a close AM when it's not. To identify a real 1992 close AM penny, you need to look closely at a few key details. First, check the mint mark. It must have a D under the date. Next, examine the word America on the reverse. The A and M should be extremely close, almost touching, with little to no visible gap. Then, look at the FG initials near the Lincoln Memorial. On genuine close AM coins, these initials are positioned slightly farther from the building compared to the standard design. Using a magnifying glass or a coin loop can make this process much easier. Clear, well-lit images can also help if you're comparing your coin to verified examples online. And if you truly believe you've found one, the best step is to send it to a professional grading service for authentication. There are also some fascinating details that make this coin even more intriguing. For example, the discovery of the 1992 close AM variety didn't happen immediately. It took years for collectors to notice the difference and understand its significance. This means that for a long time, these rare coins circulated unnoticed among millions of ordinary pennies. Another interesting fact is that similar close AM and wide AM varieties exist for other years, but the 1992 version remains one of the rarest and most valuable. It's a reminder that even in modern times, minting errors can create unexpected treasures. Collectors love this coin not just because of its value, but because of the story behind it. It represents a moment where something small slipped through a highly controlled process, creating a rare piece of history. It's also a coin that connects everyday people to the world of collecting. Unlike ancient coins locked away in museums, this is something that could realistically be found in your own home. There's also a thrill in the hunt. Searching through rolls of pennies, checking dates and details, hoping to spot that one rare variation. It's an experience that keeps collectors engaged and excited. The 1992 close AM penny is one of those coins that keeps that excitement alive. Even today, decades after it was minted, new examples are still being discovered. That's part of what makes this coin so special. It hasn't been fully found yet. There's always the possibility that more are out there waiting to be noticed. And that brings us back to where we started. That simple penny in your pocket. Could it be one of these rare coins? Most likely, it's just a regular cent worth 1 cent. But every once in a while, someone takes a closer look and discovers something extraordinary. The 1992 Lincoln penny teaches us an important lesson. Value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in the smallest details, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. So the next time you come across a handful of pennies, don't rush past them. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look at the letters. Because hidden among the ordinary, there just might be a coin that changes everything. And if you ever find yourself staring at a 1992 penny, wondering whether the letters in America are just a little too close, you might be holding more than spare change. You might be holding a piece of history that the world almost missed. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and unknowingly holding a coin that collectors quietly search for every single day. A coin that looks ordinary, but carries a story, subtle details, and in some cases, surprising value. Today, we're uncovering the truth behind the 1994 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, and why this small piece of copper-colored history still captures attention decades later. The 1994 Lincoln penny is part of one of the longest-running coin series in United States history. First introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, this penny was the first American coin to feature a real person. By 1994, the Lincoln cent had already become a familiar part of everyday life, passing through millions of hands across the country. When we say, no mint mark, many people immediately think it means something is missing or rare. But in reality, a 1994 penny with no mint mark simply means it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. For most of American coin history, Philadelphia coins did not carry a mint mark at all. So, in this case, the absence of a letter is actually normal, But that doesn't mean every 1994 no-mint mark penny is the same. To understand its importance, we need to step back into the early 1990s. This was a time when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies each year to meet demand. In 1994 alone, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 6.5 billion Lincoln cents. That's an enormous number, which might make you think these coins are everywhere and worth almost nothing. But here's where things start to get interesting. Even in years of high production, small variations, condition differences, and minting errors can turn an ordinary coin into something collectors actively seek. And the 1994 no-mint mark penny is no exception. Let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The front, known as the obverse, features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln faces right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1994 to the right. There is no mint mark beneath the date, which tells us it came from Philadelphia. On the reverse side, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was introduced in 1959. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. Above it are the words United States of America and E Pluribus Unum, while 1 cent is displayed prominently at the bottom. The coin is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper plating. By 1994, the U.S. Mint had already switched from mostly copper pennies to this zinc core composition due to rising metal costs. This gives the coin a lighter feel compared to older pennies from before 1982. If billions were made and the design is familiar, why do collectors still care about the 1994 no-mint mark penny? The answer lies in condition, rarity within commonality, and errors. Most 1994 pennies you find in circulation today are worn. They've been used in transactions, dropped, scratched, and exposed to years of handling. These coins are usually worth only face value. But when you find one in exceptional condition, things change quickly. Coins graded as mint state, meaning they show no signs of wear and retain their original shine, can be worth significantly more. A 1994 no-mint mark penny in high-grade condition, especially MS65 or higher, can sell for several dollars, sometimes even reaching into the tens or hundreds depending on its quality. Now let's talk about errors, because this is where real excitement begins. Minting errors occur when something goes wrong during the production process. These mistakes can create unique coins that stand out from the billions of normal ones. In 1994 pennies, collectors have discovered several types of errors. One example is the double die error. This happens when the coin's design is stamped more than once in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect on the letters or numbers. If you look closely at the date or inscriptions and notice a shadow-like duplication, you might have something special. Another known error is the off-center strike. This occurs when the coin blank is not properly aligned during minting, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin can be. There are also broad strike errors, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread out wider than normal. These coins look unusual and are highly collectible. Even small imperfections, like die cracks or unusual surface textures, can add interest and value. Collectors are especially drawn to these error coins because no two are exactly alike. Each one tells a story of a moment when the minting process didn't go as planned. In terms of real value, most circulated 1994 no-mint mark pennies are worth 1 cent. But uncirculated examples in excellent condition can range from $5 to $20. High-grade certified coins can go even higher. Error coins, depending on their type and visibility, have been known to sell for $50, $100, or more. There have even been auction listings where rare error varieties of 1994 pennies reach several $100s, especially when professionally graded and authenticated. This brings us to an important question. How can you tell if your 1994 penny is valuable? First, check the condition. Look for coins that still have a bright, original luster with minimal scratches or marks. These are far more desirable than worn coins. Second, inspect the details closely. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Look at the date, the word Liberty, and In God We Trust. Check for doubling, unusual spacing, or anything that looks slightly off. Third, examine the edges and shape. If the coin looks stretched, off-center, or uneven, it could be an error. Fourth, be cautious of fakes or altered coins. Some people try to modify coins to make them look like errors. Genuine mint errors usually have consistent characteristics and don't show signs of tampering. If you think you have something valuable, it's always a good idea to have it evaluated by a professional grading service. Here's a fun detail many people don't realize. Even though the 1994 penny seems modern, it's already over 30 years old. That means fewer high-quality examples are left in circulation, as many have been damaged or lost over time. Another interesting fact is that pennies are one of the most collected coins in the United States. Because they are so common, they're often the first coins people start with. But within that simplicity lies a world of hidden varieties, errors, and condition rarities. For collectors, the 1994 no-mint mark penny represents something deeper than just its monetary value. It's a reminder that even in a year of mass production, small differences can create something unique. It also teaches an important lesson about coin collecting. Value isn't always obvious at first glance. Sometimes, the most ordinary-looking coins hold the most interesting stories. Today, collectors continue to search through jars, rolls, and old collections, hoping to find that one coin that stands out. And the 1994 no-mint mark penny is often part of that search. It may not be the rarest coin ever made, but it's a perfect example of how history, condition, and chance come together in the world of numismatics. So the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date. Notice the details. Because hidden among the billions of coins still in circulation, there could be one that's worth far more than its face value. And who knows? That simple 1994 penny in your pocket might just have a story waiting to be discovered. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now isn't just spare change, but a small piece of American history with hidden value that most people overlook? Today, we're diving into a coin that millions have seen, but very few truly understand. The 1998 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, the 1998 penny looks completely ordinary. It's small, copper-colored, and carries the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln. You've probably handled dozens, maybe hundreds of them without a second thought. But beneath that simple appearance lies a story that connects craftsmanship, history, and the subtle details that collectors pay close attention to. The 1998 Lincoln penny is part of a long-running series that began back in 1909, when the United States introduced Lincoln's portrait to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. By 1998, the design had already become one of the most recognized coins in American history. The obverse, or front side, features Abraham Lincoln's profile, designed by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been used since 1959. Now here's where things start to get interesting. When we say no mint mark, many people immediately think something is missing or wrong. But in reality, for coins like the 1998 penny, the absence of a mint mark actually tells you where it was made. Coins produced at the Philadelphia Mint traditionally did not carry a mint mark for many years. So a 1998 penny without a mint mark simply means it was struck in Philadelphia. That might sound common, and in many ways it is. The Philadelphia Mint produced billions of pennies in 1998. So how can something so widely made become valuable or even collectible? The answer lies in the details. Not every coin is created equal, even when they come from the same year and the same mint. Small variations during the minting process can create differences that are almost invisible to the untrained eye, but extremely important to collectors. Let's talk about what the coin is actually made of. By 1998, Lincoln pennies were no longer solid copper. Instead, they were made primarily of zinc with a thin copper coating. This change happened in 1982 to reduce production costs. So the 1998 penny is composed of about 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper. It still looks like a classic copper coin, but inside, it's something quite different. The design itself remained consistent. On the front, you'll see the word Liberty to the left of Lincoln's portrait, and the year 1998 to the right. Above his head is the motto, "In God We Trust." On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly, with the words United States of America and E Pluribus Unum. But here's where collectors start paying very close attention. Even within these standard designs, there are subtle variations that can make one coin far more desirable than another. One of the most talked about features in late 1990s pennies is the difference between what collectors call wide AM and close AM varieties on the reverse side. These refer to the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America. On most 1998 pennies, the letters are very close together, which is known as the close AM variety. But in rare cases, you might find a wide AM version, where there is a noticeable gap between the letters. Why does this matter? Because the wide AM style was actually intended for proof coins, which are specially made for collectors, not for general circulation. When a proof design accidentally ends up on a regular circulation coin, it creates a variety that collectors find extremely exciting. So if you happen to find a 1998 penny with no mint mark and a wide AM on the reverse, you could be holding something far more valuable than a single cent. Another detail collectors look for is condition. This is where things really start to separate ordinary coins from valuable ones. A 1998 penny that has been heavily used, scratched, or worn down is usually only worth its face value. But a coin that has been preserved in near-perfect condition, with sharp details and a bright surface, can be worth significantly more. Grading plays a huge role here. Professional coin grading services evaluate coins on a scale from 1 to 70, with higher numbers indicating better condition. A 1998 penny graded at the very top levels, such as MS67 or higher, can command surprising prices in the collector market. There have been cases where high-grade 1998 pennies have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on their condition and specific characteristics. And if you combine a rare variety like the wide AM with a high grade, the value can climb even higher. Now, you might be wondering how to tell if your coin is real or if it has one of these valuable traits. The first step is simple observation. Look closely at the date and the overall design. Make sure the details are sharp and match known examples of genuine coins. Pay attention to the spacing in the word America on the reverse. Using a magnifying glass can make a big difference. Many of the features that matter most are too small to see clearly with the naked eye. If you suspect you have something special, comparing your coin to verified images online or in coin guides can help confirm what you're seeing. Weight is another clue. A standard 1998 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If it's significantly off, that could indicate damage, alteration, or even a counterfeit, although fake pennies from this era are relatively uncommon. Another important factor is surface quality. Authentic coins will have a consistent texture and color, even if they show some wear. Be cautious of coins that look artificially altered, overly polished, or unusual in color, as these could have been modified after leaving the mint. Let's take a moment to explore something that many people don't realize. Even though the 1998 penny is relatively modern, it represents a period of transition in coin collecting. By the late 1990s, more people were beginning to pay attention to small details and varieties, thanks in part to the growing availability of information through books, magazines, and eventually the internet. This increased awareness means that coins like the 1998 no-mint mark penny have been examined more closely than earlier coins in some ways. Collectors have documented variations, tracked sales, and built a deeper understanding of what makes certain examples stand out. Here's a fun detail that surprises many people. If you look closely at the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse of the coin, you can actually see a tiny representation of Lincoln's statue inside the building. It's incredibly small, but it's there. This level of detail is part of what makes the design so iconic and beloved. Another interesting fact is that billions of pennies are produced each year, yet only a tiny fraction ever become collectible in a meaningful way. It's not just about age. It's about rarity, condition, and those subtle differences that most people never noticed. So why do collectors love the 1998 no-mint mark penny? Part of the appeal is accessibility. Unlike older, rare coins that can cost thousands of dollars, the 1998 penny is something almost anyone can find. It invites people into the world of coin collecting without requiring a huge investment. There's also the thrill of discovery. The idea that you could find a valuable variety in your spare change adds an element of excitement. Every coin becomes a possibility, every detail worth examining. And then there's the historical connection. Even a modern coin like this carries the legacy of Abraham Lincoln and the long tradition of American coinage. It's a reminder that history isn't just in museums. Sometimes, it's right there in your hand. As we come to the end of this journey, think about this. The next time you receive change, will you look at those pennies the same way? Or will you take a closer look, searching for the small details that could turn an ordinary coin into something extraordinary. Because hidden among billions of coins, there are always a few that stand out. And sometimes all it takes is a careful eye to find them. Imagine finding a single penny in your pocket, a coin so ordinary that you almost ignore it. But hidden within that tiny piece of copper could be a detail that turns it into something collectors quietly search for every day. Not a million-dollar treasure, not a headline-grabbing rarity, but a coin with subtle secrets that most people overlook. Today, we're uncovering the story of the 2006 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, and why this small coin continues to spark curiosity among collectors. The 2006 D Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, one of the most recognized coins in American history. The D Mint mark means it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the major facilities responsible for striking billions of coins each year. At first glance, this coin looks just like any other penny you might find in circulation. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and a simple design on the back. But as with many coins, the real story is in the details. To understand this coin, we have to go back to its origin. The Lincoln penny itself was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure, replacing earlier symbolic designs. By 2006, the Lincoln penny had already gone through decades of change, but it still held onto its classic identity. The year 2006 wasn't marked by a major redesign or special edition for the penny, which is exactly what makes it interesting. It represents a continuation of tradition during a time when the United States Mint was producing coins in massive numbers for everyday use. Billions of pennies were struck that year, including a large portion at the Denver Mint. Because of this, many people assume that the 2006 D penny has no real value beyond 1 cent. But that assumption doesn't always hold true. Let's look closer at the coin itself. The front, or obverse, features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, originally designed by Victor David Brenner. You'll see the word Liberty to the left of Lincoln, the year 2006 to the right, and just below the date, a small D Mint mark indicating Denver. The phrase "In God We Trust" arches across the top. On the back, or reverse, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial design, which was used from 1959 to 2008. If you look very closely, you can even see a tiny depiction of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial, a detail many people never notice. This level of fine engraving is part of what makes the Lincoln penny so iconic. Now, here's where things start to get interesting. Even though millions of these coins were made, not all of them are exactly the same. Small variations during the minting process can create differences that collectors actively search for. These are known as mint errors or varieties, and they can dramatically change the value of an otherwise common coin. Some 2006 D pennies have been found with subtle errors such as off-center strikes, die cracks, or doubled lettering. These errors happen when the machinery used to strike the coins experiences slight misalignments or wear over time. While most coins come out perfectly, a few slip through with these unique characteristics. For example, a double die error might show slight duplication in the letters or numbers on the coin. It may not be obvious at first, but under magnification, you can see the effect clearly. Another example is a die crack, which appears as a raised line across the surface of the coin, caused by a crack in the metal die used to strike it. These small imperfections can make a big difference. A standard 2006 D penny in circulated condition is usually worth just 1 cent. Even in uncirculated condition, it might only be worth a few cents to a collector. But if you find one with a noticeable mint error, the value can jump significantly. There have been instances where 2006 D pennies with clear and attractive errors have sold for anywhere from $10 to over $100, depending on the type and visibility of the error. While that may not sound life-changing, it's a huge increase compared to the coin's face value. And for collectors, it's not just about the money. It's about the thrill of discovering something rare in a place where most people would never think to look. So why do these coins hold value at all if so many were made? The answer lies in condition and uniqueness. Coins are graded on their condition, ranging from heavily worn to perfect mint state. A 2006 D penny that has never been used, with no scratches, marks, or discoloration, is far more desirable than one that has been in circulation for years. Collectors often look for coins that are graded MS65 or higher, meaning they are in near-perfect condition. These coins can command higher prices, especially if they have strong luster and sharp details. Combine that with a mint error, and you have a coin that stands out in a sea of ordinary pennies. If you're wondering how to identify a real 2060 Lincoln penny, the process is actually quite simple. First, check the date and mint mark. The year should clearly read 2006, and just below it, you should see a small D. Next, examine the overall design. The details of Lincoln's face and the Lincoln Memorial should be crisp and well-defined, especially on coins in better condition. To spot potential errors, you may need a magnifying glass or a coin loop. Look closely at the lettering, the numbers, and the edges of the design. Any doubling, unusual lines, or misalignment could indicate an error. It's important to compare your coin with a known normal example to see if anything looks different. One thing to keep in mind is that not every unusual mark is a valuable error. Damage from circulation, such as scratches or dents, does not increase value. In fact, it usually lowers it. True mint errors occur during the production process, not after the coin has been used. There are also counterfeit coins in the market, although it's less common with modern pennies like the 2006 D. Still, if you ever believe you've found something valuable, it's a good idea to have it examined by a professional coin grading service. They can authenticate the coin and provide an official grade, which helps establish its value. Here's a fun detail that many people don't realize. The 2006 Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper plating. This composition has been used since 1982 to reduce production costs. So even though the coin looks like solid copper, it's actually a different metal inside. This change is part of a broader effort by the U.S. Mint to keep coin production affordable. Another interesting fact is just how many pennies are produced each year. In 2006 alone, billions of pennies were struck across different mints. That means these coins passed through countless hands, pockets, and cash registers. Somewhere along the way, a few of them developed unique characteristics that turned them into collector's items. Collectors are drawn to coins like the 2006 D penny not because they are extremely rare, but because they are accessible. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to start collecting. You can begin with the coins already in your possession. That sense of possibility is what makes coin collecting so appealing. There's also a sense of connection to history. Even a modern coin like this one represents a moment in time. It reflects the economy, the technology, and the craftsmanship of the era in which it was made. Holding a coin like this is like holding a small piece of that story. Today, the 2006 D Lincoln penny continues to be part of many collections. Some people collect them by year, others by mint mark, and some focus specifically on errors and varieties. No matter the approach, this coin plays a role in the larger world of numismatics. And perhaps the most fascinating part is this: there are still undiscovered errors out there. Coins sitting in jars, drawers, or forgotten corners could hold details that no one has noticed yet. Every time you pick up a penny, there's a small chance that you're holding something more than just loose change. So the next time you see a 2006 D penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Examine the details. Because in a world where value often hides in plain sight, even the smallest coin can carry a story worth discovering. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and discovering that this small, everyday coin might hold more value than you ever expected. Not because it's made of gold or because it's ancient, but because of something most people completely overlook. Today, we're uncovering the story behind the 2015 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that millions of people have handled, but very few have truly understood. At first glance, the 2015 Lincoln penny looks ordinary. It carries the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the front, just like countless pennies before it. On the reverse, you'll see the Union Shield design, symbolizing strength and unity. This design has been used on Lincoln pennies since 2010, representing the United States coming together as one nation. There's nothing flashy, nothing rare-looking, nothing that immediately screams value. And yet, that's exactly what makes this coin so interesting. The phrase "no mint mark" often creates confusion. Many people assume that if a coin doesn't have a mint mark, it must be rare. But in the case of the 2015 penny, that's not entirely true. When a coin has no mint mark, it usually means it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. For decades, Philadelphia coins were not required to carry a mint mark, and even today, many pennies from Philadelphia are still made without one. In 2015, billions of Lincoln pennies were produced. The United States Mint struck these coins in massive quantities to keep up with everyday circulation needs. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced over 3 billion pennies that year. That means the majority of 2015 pennies you'll find in your change will not have a mint mark. So if they're so common, why are collectors paying attention to them? The answer lies in the details. While most 2015 no mint mark pennies are worth exactly 1 cent, a small number stand out due to condition, errors, and subtle variations. These are the coins that turn an ordinary penny into something worth collecting, and sometimes even selling. Let's talk about the composition first. The 2015 Lincoln penny is not made of solid copper like older coins. Since 1982, pennies have been made primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating. This gives them the same appearance as older copper coins, but at a much lower production cost. Over time, this composition can lead to wear, bubbling, or discoloration, especially if the coin has been exposed to moisture. Now, here's where things get interesting. Because these pennies are made in such large quantities, the production process isn't always perfect. Occasionally, mistakes happen during minting. These mistakes, known as mint errors, are what collectors look for. One of the most sought-after errors is the double die. This happens when the coin is struck more than once, slightly misaligned, causing the design to appear doubled. On a 2015 penny, this might show up in the lettering, especially in the words "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." To the untrained eye, it may look like a shadow or blur, but to a collector, it can mean a significant increase in value. Another error to watch for is off-center strikes. This occurs when the coin blank is not properly aligned during the minting process. The result is a design that is shifted to one side, leaving part of the coin blank. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin can be. There are also coins with die cracks or cuds. These are small raised lines or blobs of metal caused by damage to the minting die. While they might look like flaws, collectors often see them as unique fingerprints that make each coin special. Condition plays a huge role in value as well. Most 2015 pennies have been in circulation, meaning they've been handled, scratched, and worn over time. But if you happen to find one in near-perfect condition, known as mint state, it can be worth far more than face value. Coins graded MS67 or higher by professional grading services are especially desirable. In fact, some high-grade 2015 no-mint mark pennies have sold for surprising amounts. While circulated examples are typically worth just a cent, uncirculated coins in exceptional condition can sell for several dollars, and in rare cases, even more. Coins with verified errors can fetch anywhere from $20 to over $100, depending on the type and visibility of the error. There have been auction listings where collectors competed for pristine examples, pushing prices higher than most people would expect for such a modern coin. It's not about the age alone, but the rarity within the condition and uniqueness. So how can you tell if your 2015 penny is worth anything? Start by looking closely at the coin under good lighting. Check for a mint mark under the date. If there's no letter, it's from Philadelphia. Then examine the surface carefully. Look for doubling in the letters, unusual lines, or anything that looks out of place. Rotate the coin and see how the light reflects off it. Sometimes errors are only visible at certain angles. Next, consider the condition. Is the coin shiny and clean, or dull and worn? Are there scratches, dents, or discoloration? The closer it looks to brand new, the more potential value it may have. If you believe you've found something unusual, you can compare it with images from trusted coin resources or consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service. This step can confirm whether your coin is truly rare or just a common piece of pocket change. Here's a fun detail many people don't realize. Even though pennies are often overlooked, they are one of the most widely collected coins in the United States. The Lincoln Penny series, first introduced in 1909, has a long and fascinating history. Collectors love it because it's accessible. You don't need a fortune to start collecting, and valuable finds can still appear in everyday circulation. Another surprising fact is that some people search through rolls of pennies from banks, hoping to discover rare varieties or errors. This practice, known as coin roll hunting, has become a popular hobby. And yes, coins like the 2015 no-mint mark penny are often part of that search. What makes this coin especially interesting today is the shift in how people view everyday money. As digital payments become more common, physical coins are used less frequently. This means fewer people pay attention to the details of the coins they handle. For collectors, that creates opportunity. The 2015 penny represents a modern coin that still has hidden potential. It reminds us that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. Collectors are drawn to this coin not because it's rare in the traditional sense, but because of the possibilities it holds. It's a reminder that even the most common objects can have uncommon stories. Every scratch, every error, every perfectly preserved surface tells a piece of that story. And perhaps that's the real reason this coin continues to capture attention. It's not just about money. It's about discovery. It's about the thrill of finding something unexpected in the most ordinary place, so the next time you come across a penny, especially a 2015 with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a moment. Look closer. Because hidden within that small piece of metal could be a detail that transforms it from something ordinary into something worth remembering. And who knows? The coin you almost ignored today might just be the one that surprises you tomorrow.